Lincoln Project has been on a tear lately. The breakdown starts now. Good evening and welcome to The Breakdown. I'm Tara Setmayer. This is the Rick Wilson, and we are thrilled to be back with you tonight. We have a packed show and a special guest. Our good friend of the show, former Congressman Denver Riggleman, will be joining us in a few minutes to talk about all kinds of things because there's so much going on. And for those who don't know, former Congressman Riggleman is an expert in debunking conspiracy theories, in extremism. He is a data analyst. He spent many years in Army intelligence, and he worked on the January 6th committee, helping them go through all of that data with the phone numbers and the text messages and connecting the dots. That was him and his team that worked on most of that. So he's got a lot to say, you can imagine, given everything that's going on, particularly that stupid weaponization committee that's going on in the hearings this week. It's been nuts. So stay tuned for Denver Riggleman, who will be joining us shortly. And Rick, I'm glad to see you. We've been seeing a lot of each other lately.
I know, I've loved it. It's actually been terrific. Like we've been hanging out like more in the last 3 weeks together in like real time, real life than the last couple of years.
It's true. Great. It's true. A lot of people don't realize that the majority of our time in the Lincoln Project was during COVID. So we never saw each other. Rick and I saw each other once in February of 2020, I believe, before all hell broke loose. And I didn't see you again in person until I think Nashville.
I saw you at Harvard. I flew to LA the next day, and then they locked us down, I think like a day after.
That's right. And we didn't see each other for 2 years after that, almost 3. So we've been hanging out a lot lately, and Lincoln Project has been kicking ass and taking names and getting awards for it. As you guys know, we've been talking about the Webby Awards and the Pollies and all these things, and the Webby Awards finally happened on Monday. We got to hang out with the crew in New York City. A bunch of members of the creative team were there. You had Michelle Kinney and Kate Salkowitz and Phil Germain, who's on our political team. We had our great press secretary, Greg Minchuk, was there. Michael Steele, former chairman of the RNC and friend of the Lincoln Project, he was there with us, and we had
one of our... Look closely, people. You'll see me wearing a tie.
Yes.
In related news, there's a unicorn in the background.
Yeah, no shit. But the tie didn't last long, by the way. The tie did not last long.
No, the tie had to go.
No, as you can see, the tie is not there. There's the whole crew. Oh, there's Ryan. We had our chief of staff.
Chairman Steele.
Yes, Chairman Steele was there. So it was a really great night with a bunch of winners. It's the Oscars of the internet for those who are unfamiliar with the Webbies. And there's there were a lot of celebrities in the building. You had Tracy Ellis Ross. You had Anderson Cooper was there. You had Roy Wood Jr., who was the MC.
SZA.
Yeah, SZA, who I'm not cool, so I didn't really know her. I didn't really know her, and I'm like, I don't know her music, but apparently she's a big deal. The kids tell me. But here's the rub about the Webbies. So it was at Cipriani down in Wall Street in New York City. So we all got to be fancy there. But the rules are you can only give a 5-word acceptance speech. 5 words. That's it. It doesn't matter who you are, how famous you are. It does not matter. 5 words. So as you can imagine, Rick Wilson was selected to accept our award. Now, they don't let everybody accept awards. Only a handful of people get to accept awards. And this year, we were selected, and Rick got to give the award. And we're going to share with you Rick's 5-word acceptance speech.
Fuck around and find out.
Now, folks, I had an inspirational, uplifting call to arms for democracy and freedom written, and Tara looks at me, she goes, "The fuck are you talking about?"
I'm guilty.
That's not you.
Right.
And I think I captured the essence of LP and the fight in a weird way, because it really was part of what we do, folks, on your behalf and with your support and your encouragement and your help. And we've done this now since December of 2019. It seems like a long damn time. But this fight is powered by people like you. And when I walked up there to accept that award, on behalf of the Lincoln Project. It was for the great team that makes these ads. And it was for all of you who have kept the fuel in the tank and encouraged us when it was tough and laughed with us when it was fun and charged alongside of us into these battles over and over again. So I just want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. It really meant an awful lot to stand on that stage in front of all those folks and accept that as a symbol of the fight that we've all been engaged in together. So thank you.
Hear, hear, my friend. Hear, hear. I'm so glad you listened to me, because we were sitting next to each other and I said, Rick, come on. You're going to say this, right? And he wasn't going to do it. He was a nervous wreck. And I had to get the rest of the table to help lobby him to convince him to do it, because he almost wasn't going to do it, because the awards that we won for the video content was for the Ukraine democracy campaign and also for International Holocaust remembrance. So they were kind of solemn. But if you have any idea how the Webbies are, it was 100% appropriate to get up there and do that. And the crowd went nuts. They went nuts. And that's exactly
what they enjoyed that a lot.
They did. And I appreciated, we got a lot of thank yous, and a lot of people came up to us thanking us for what we do, which was really satisfying and validating and reiterating. So we keep up this good fight for you guys. So that's that. But that's not the only thing Lincoln Project was doing representing in New York City on Monday, Rick Wilson.
No, it was not.
For those who don't know, in the media business, you have something called upfronts. And that's basically where networks get to preview their plan for the next season. And they sell those shows and ideas and what their schedule is going to be, or if they're hiring new talent or developing a new show. They preview this for advertisers, because they're the ones who pay the bills. So Lincoln Project got the wonderful idea to troll Fox News at their upfronts on Monday, which were happening in New York. So we went out and got a billboard truck and played something called Brand Unsafe. Take a look.
Tucker's gone. Rupert isn't. And Fox is still poison for your brand.
White, purple-haired, uglified women.
You're gross. How did you know they were illegal?
You can tell.
Peddling lies, conspiracies, hatred, and violence.
Justice, or they'll burn it down. Well, at least they have rhythm.
Now you're going for the kill shot.
That guy's a pussy. That thrill just went down my leg.
Boom! He is dead!
If your brand advertises on Fox, you're paying for it.
So, Rick, explain. There's the truck. Explain what we did.
So we did two things that day. Look at that shot of the Empire State Building in the background.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. Shout out to whoever took that photo.
So the upfronts are an incredibly important ad sales moment every year. And the networks try to go and say to every advertiser, whether it's Ford Motor Company or General Mills or Procter and Gamble or any big insurance company, anybody, they bring hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people together in a big auditorium and they do a show. They do a thing with like lights and confetti and, hey, our network is so awesome. You've got to come here. This is amazing. Invest in our network because we are so awesome. We're going to move product. Well, what we did was, first off, walking in or out of that, you were going to be confronted with exactly the kind of garbage and propaganda and hate and insanity that Fox has been defined by. Mm-hmm. And the best thing they could say that night was, well, we got rid of Tucker.
Yeah.
The second thing we did was what we are very good at doing. We targeted those ads into everyone in that auditorium's devices.
Yeah,
so they
geofencing. It's called geofencing.
Trying to pitch their BS, they're getting our messages on their phones and tablets. So Fox was really irritated. They were super, super mad. And a Fox executive, we're still trying to find out who it was, but we will track you down. I assure you. I assure you, we'll find you. A Fox executive called the NYPD, called the cops.
True story.
Our driver ticketed, towed, arrested, blah blah blah. If they didn't move, well, the driver was a little intimidated at first, like, I can't stay here. They're gonna.
A poor guy, you know. I mean, NYPD can be intimidating anyway. You know, he's just doing his job. The driver of the truck wasn't anything to do with Lincoln Project.
Ryan Wiggins
tired
on the phone with the guys who were on the ground handling this, and it's like, tell him we'll pay the tickets. Don't worry.
Yeah.
And they ended up not ticketing him because they figured out that we had our eyes on them, and so we did this in a way that it's fun and it's funny on one level, but it's also targeting one of the prime elements of the authoritarian propaganda machine in this country. And I want them to suffer. I want them to hurt. Why do I want that? It's not because I dislike their free speech rights. It's because they would crush everyone else's if they had a chance.
That's right.
And they just proved it. They just showed they can dish it. They can bully people all day long. They can call people predators and pedophiles and cannibals and communists and Antifa and black radicals. They can call anybody anything they want, but the minute you tell the truth about them, they come screaming out and call the cops.
Yep.
It was a great example of the way the Lincoln Project is going to fight in this fight in 2024, because we have to. You can't let any element of that monster and that machine feel like they ever get a free time, like they ever get a free moment.
That's 100% right. And that was something that was on brand for us. But what we heard a lot of from folks at the Webby Awards from all walks of life, thanking us for that kind of stuff, because we're the only ones that have the balls to do it. We have to hit back like this. And so it was great to resurrect the billboard truck thing. And guess what? That wasn't it. So not only did we target Fox because they're horrible, and by the way, that was the same day that they announced that Hannity's taking the 8 o'clock slot. Jesse Waters, like I said, is getting the 9 o'clock slot.
You called it.
Greg Gutfeld, who is another pathetic minion, Napoleonic complex jerk off, he's getting the 10 o'clock slot. And it looks like Laura Ingraham is...
He's like a walking ad for a dollar store generic erectile dysfunction medication. Ugh.
Oh my God. Yes. And so that's their new lineup. So does it look like Fox has learned anything from the Dominion lawsuit? No. Not really. So there's that. But then that wasn't it. It didn't end there. Because many of you probably remember we were not on air last week, but the CNN Trump Town Hall aired last week from New Hampshire live with Caitlin Collins. And it was a disaster, an absolute disaster. We all had very choice words.
Actually, I think the technical term for it, Tara, was that it was the impact of a plane full of clowns crashing into the radioactive waste dump on top of Burning Tire Mountain.
Yeah, I'd say that fits. Yes. Yes. So much so that CNN pulled the plug early on it because it was supposed to go 90 minutes, not 60. Don't let them tell you otherwise.
Right.
And all of the insider reporting about it. There's a lot of spies inside CNN because Chris Licht, who runs CNN and who replaced Jeff Zucker, is not very well liked. And he's made a series of very terrible decisions and has ruined CNN. So CNN, based off of their little town hall disaster last week, they got the Lincoln Project treatment also because CNN's upfronts were on Wednesday. And guess what? This is what was shown in front of their upfronts.
Once the most trusted name in news, CNN has gone MAGA. Desperate to capture the Fox News audience, CNN threw its principles away and gave Donald Trump a 1-hour infomercial. Barely fact-checked him. Even kept the cameras rolling as Trump and his audience laughed and applauded his sexual assaults, promised to free terrorists, spouted racist insults, and lied 139 times. The professional journalists at CNN were rightly outraged, but Trump promised CNN head Chris Licht great ratings, and Licht told him to have fun. Now, Trump's eager for another free ride from CNN. Desperate for ratings, they'll do it again. If your brand is eager to back Trump's hate, choose TNN, the Trump News Network. That's not what they call it, but that's what it is. This is TNN.
Ooh, boy. I just have to say,
not happy.
I have to say, as someone who worked for CNN for 6 years, and they gave me a tremendous opportunity to have a platform during the Trump disaster of his administration. And it led me to this. It led me to a lot of opportunities, and it gave me a chance to speak to millions of people all the time and tell the truth and fight those bastards and keep them honest on the Trump side and Republicans. However, the CNN that I worked for is not the CNN today. Yeah. And a lot of my friends and colleagues who were there, a lot of them are not there anymore, from producers to bookers to talent. And it is the morale inside the building is awful. Chris Licht is on the hot seat. Rick, you and I have a lot of friends in the media space that this is like the hottest thing. And if he makes it to the end of the year, I'll be shocked. And his decision to promote Caitlin Collins to 9 o'clock, I don't think is going to work out too great, but there's a lot going on there. And while we were on Wednesday, after we were recovering from the Webbies on Monday and Tuesday, I think we have some footage of our truck, of the CNN truck. Yes,
Hey, I think we do.
Yeah, let's run. Prominently featured, that you could not miss it, and it also circled.
And you'd be shocked to know that if you want to imitate Fox, it's a bad play usually. But of course, CNN tried to do the same thing to intimidate us with the police to move the vehicle. Now, I have to tell you, we didn't.
Right.
And I want to say one thing, Tara, and then we've got to get to our guests, obviously, because we could chit chat all night.
Yes.
I want to say one other thing. I have talked to 4 people at CNN since we rolled that truck and rolled that ad. 2 of them are air talent. 2 of them are we'll call it production talent. It's a broad area. Every single one of them is like, I can't believe you did this to us. However,
thank you.
You weren't wrong.
Yeah.
Because what he's doing, and they can feel the gravitational pull of Chris Licht getting seduced by Trump's ratings machine, so that he will burn the network down, just like our old friend Jeff Zucker did. He will do anything to keep Trump on the air and happy, and keep dragging exclusives out of Trump. And they fear it, and they should fear it, because CNN is the home of a cadre of incredibly talented, professional, brilliant people
internationally
who give a damn about the news and about journalism. And the thing that's so deeply troubling about this is you don't make a deal with Trump without compromising every one of your principles.
Of course, because
it will soon come down to the same kind of sort of shit that Zucker used to do, where Trump would call him and say, don't have X or Y on the air, take him off. And they would do it.
Yeah, that's true. I can't deny that, that did happen. And we saw how much free airtime Trump got. And people forget Jeff Zucker, when he was at NBC, is the one who greenlit The Apprentice. So, there's a long history there. Chris Licht
By the way, I just had a message from somebody asking about the Swank Lincoln Project coffee mug. We have a beer store on the website. I don't know the address, but you can
just go to the LP website, and there's a gear store thing, and you can click on it and buy a mug. Just as before we bring in Denver, because I want his reaction to this, we're not going to relitigate the entire town hall, because it was a week ago now, and we've already everything that's been said has been said. However, of course, after the town hall, we had to point out the fact that Donald Trump lied his ass off, as he usually does. And it was quite remarkable. Even when you watch the post analysis, the post town hall analysis by CNN's own people, they were morose about it because it was such a disaster. But take a look at this, and then we're going to bring in Denver Riggleman on the other side. Take a look.
Why should Americans put you back in the White House?
Because we did fantastically.
Will you suspend polarizing talk of election fraud during your run for president?
Yeah, unless I see election fraud. That was a rigged election. Crazy Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington were in charge, as you know, of security.
One person who was at the Capitol that day, as you know, was your vice president, Mike Pence, who says that you endangered his life on that day.
I don't think he was in any danger.
Do you feel that you owe him an apology?
No, because he did something wrong. I never met this woman. I never saw this woman. I met her in the front door of Bergdorf Goodman. Her cat was named Vagina. And I swear on my children, which I'd never do. I have no idea who this woman. This is a fake story. I said, women let you. I didn't say you grab. I said women let. Drill, baby, drill. I got you the biggest tax cuts in the history of our country.
You think the U.S. should default if the White House does not agree to the spending cuts Republicans are demanding?
You might as well do it now, because you'll do it later.
You once said that using the debt ceiling as a negotiating wedge just could not happen. You said that when you were in the Oval Office.
That's when I was president.
So why is it different now that you're out of office?
Because now I'm not president. I did finish the wall. If I were president, this would have never happened. If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours.
Why did you take those documents with you when you left the White House?
I had every right to under the Presidential Records Act.
Did you ever show those classified documents to anyone?
Not really. I would have the right to. I did nothing wrong. It was a perfect phone call. Thank you very much, Caitlin. Good job. Thank you very much. I like you guys. We love New Hampshire. Thank you. Thank you, Woody. Good luck, Woody.
Good grief. Well, it's time to bring in Denver Riggleman, our very good friend. I'm thrilled to have you here with us. There's just so much to talk about, Denver. I mean, when you were watching that town hall, or maybe you didn't, and that was a recap for you, but as someone who works in the arena of facts and data and, you know, concrete, provable facts and evidence, what was your reaction?
You know, there's parts of that where, you know, I expected the answers, and those are the ones that made me the most angry. I got, you know, especially about the election, that it was rigged. Talking about he would only, you know, he wouldn't talk about election fraud unless there was fraud, which he talked about last time before 2020. The issues, you know, all the way down the line, though, and I think this is, I don't want to bring horrifying stuff, you know, to you and Rick right now. But I will tell you that I think the right-wing media ecosystem has spread these videos so fast and with such viral ferocity. You know, we look at the ratings that night of what, 3.1 or 3.3 million, Rick and Tara, something like that. But I've been telling people, it's like, that's not what's important. What's important is they're cutting and slicing that up and then spreading that in sort of the far-right media ecosystem. And what I have never heard such support. Even people that had sort of fallen away from Trump are now sort of parroting what they saw in the CNN town hall. And I feel like I'm refighting the same turf war with individuals trying to point out some of this stuff. And now we're, what, 2 years removed, guys? 2.5 years removed?
Yep.
So now that it's metastasized, and actually this is now a meme for many, many Republican voters that the election was stolen. And the fact that he acted the way he did and said the things that he did was so unpresidential. But I think the people that support him believe that still shows he's a fighter regardless of facts. And I think we're in a post-facts 2024 election cycle. And I think it's going to be rough.
I got to tell you, Denver, that one of them, I mean, it was so infuriating for me that I turned it off midway through. And then I went back to it about 20 minutes after that. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. Once he said the part about January 6th and called the police officer, the Capitol police officer who did his duty to protect the speaker's lobby and unfortunately had to discharge his weapon on a violent rioter trying to break into the speaker's lobby and do God knows what. When he called him a thug and tried to make Ashley Babbitt a martyr and spread all those conspiracy theories again and talking about how he was going to pardon the January 6th folks. You know, it's police week here in DC. You know, it was National Police Remembrance Day a couple days ago, Police Memorial and all that's a big deal here in DC, especially for me. Everybody knows I'm a big law enforcement, pro law enforcement person. I was like screaming at the screen, and I could not believe Caitlin Collins didn't push back on that. And I thought to myself, what a disrespectful display for CNN, who employs Michael Fanone. And I do not know if Michael Fanone resigned or quit his contract with them. If he hasn't, he should, after letting Trump giving him a platform in the first place, but then letting him get away with that kind of nonsense. I mean, you worked in the January 6th committee. And I just, what were some of the takeaways that you got from your work on the committee relating to a lot of the lies that Trump told? I know we spent 3 hours on that, but top line it.
It was great. No, gosh, Tara, I think you covered some of that. That's fantastic because I think when you saw, okay, I'm going to try to take each part of this. Here we go. So as far as Caitlin Collins, right? I think you can be professional, but you have to be confrontational. And you can't allow him to sort of run away and steamroll you with things and then say, and then what Caitlin would try to do at the end of it is she would try to sneak in a fact and then move to the next question. You got to confront, right? And I think once that he saw she wasn't going to do that, it opened up the door for an absolute steamroller of a performance by him. And it didn't matter what he said because the supporters in the audience, they were going to cheer. As far as what you talked about, calling a police officer a thug who was doing his duty, guys, I know where the speaker's lobby is, as you all do, right? I know that right beyond the speaker's lobby is the floor of Congress, right? Yep. And think about law enforcement that day, them surging towards those doors, and then and backpacks and people screaming and cussing, and there's smoke outside. Radio traffic was probably chaos.
Guys in body armor.
Right, Rick. And so, and then you have somebody trying to come through the speaker's lobby, complete appropriate action. And the fact
and the
that
Justice Department agreed, by the way, this officer was cleared by the Department of Justice, who did an investigation, which was something that Caitlin should have mentioned at that point.
Well, what scares me when he says that is that any normal thinking American will say that's a line of demarcation between what we think is rule of law and American values, and really a violent idiocracy. And I think, again, I hated seeing the clips because I did watch it. I'll tell you guys, I sat there and watched that entire town hall. And watching it again, the reason that my blood boils is because I took an oath to the Constitution of the United States as a military officer, as a congressman, as an enlisted troop. And I'm watching somebody sort of drag truth and facts through the mud. Somebody who saw 38 million lines of data, somebody knows that the White House called a rioter that day, somebody who knows that the Oath Keepers were texting. An Oath Keeper was texting with Andrew Giuliani, who worked for Trump at that time on the White House staff, the son of Rudy Giuliani. All that stuff has just been suppressed, not in a way that, because nobody cares about that. Nobody cares that there was actual Oath Keepers texting White House staff. That should be a story every freaking day. I think, and if I'm up there questioning that, and he goes, "It didn't happen," my first question, well, who in the White House called a rioter at 4:34 p.m. on January 6th? Tell me this: did you know your staff was actually talking to Oath Keepers, right? Western chauvinist groups? Did you know that? Oh, you didn't? What kind of White House were you running, by the way? Why did you say it was going to be wild? Why were you quiet for 3 hours, right? Why, from 1:10 to 4:17, what were you doing, right? Were you hiding? Were you a scared little boy? That's the kind of confrontation you have to have every time. Sorry, I'm into it now. I apologize.
Go. That's why you're here. Go.
That's the kind of confrontation you have to have, is that you use facts as a cudgel, right? The best way I put this way. Hunter Thompson, one of my favorite authors. I'm sorry, guys. Hunter Thompson, right? He used a term that I like to use. So I'm going to use it. I'm going to steal from him. You know what data needs to be, guys? It needs to be a 1 million pound shit hammer. And we need to use data and facts as a 1 million pound shit hammer. And you can't be afraid to use it. You need to drag that shit hammer behind you. And when they come at you, you need to swing it. And that is, if you're not willing to do that, get off the stage. Right.
Well, I think that was one of the things I think that's one of the things that a lot of people who've paid attention since January 6th, and you have been at the granular level of understanding the networks of people surrounding this entire thing, understanding the relationships from the White House to the Willard War Room to the Oath Keepers, 1% or 3%ers, all these various folks. This was not some casual stroll down the park. It was a planned operation, and the fact that she couldn't go back to that and wouldn't interrupt the BS and wouldn't show the outrage. Not that a journalist should show, but that any American should show when someone is lying to them on that stage at a scale and a level and an intensity that's just mind-boggling.
Let me just say something really quick, Denver, before you answer. So when we first saw the town hall, I know I was like, why don't they have video in the background showing, fact checking him in real time? Why didn't they show, have a scroll on the screen, at least a side by side, fact checking him in real time? It's because the Trump campaign wouldn't let them. Chris Licht allowed Trump's campaign to have everything they wanted. They were not allowed to have video. She couldn't confront him with actual video of whoever said what, or him saying something, or the shots of the officers getting beaten to death or whatever. Like, they couldn't do it. So that was frustrating and a huge mistake in and of itself. And because that's what should have been done. And if he didn't want to agree to it, well, then fuck him. And no, you know what? Then no, you don't get to come on here and just lie your ass off the entire time. Very frustrating.
Well, exactly right. Because at some point in the human condition, is there a journalist out there who is brave enough, major networks or major cable networks, to say that's a lie? That's a lie. And here's why. Right. You could say this is a lie, and here's why. Right. Do you believe that there was actually a globalist deep state conspiracy that stole your election? Go. Right. The Trump. Right. And see what he says. And I think you got a slant angle attack. Right. If you know more than him, which I do, by a factor of a quadrillion, right?
Yeah.
If you know more than him, Slaney will attack him. Bring him to where you want to bring, right? Hey, President Trump, did you moisturize this morning? Oh, you did? Yeah. Did you moisturize the day that you actually helped with the insurrection? I mean, so there's this, I like to slant angle attack, a question that doesn't make a lot of sense. Then you smack them, get them off kilter, right? But if you have the facts behind you, you can start to actually take it to the point where you're dissembling that person on stage, because there's no way they can withstand that kind of heat, right? When they're looking stupid. And I think he knew that.
I think I would do it. If Donald Trump would come on the breakdown, I'd have a 3-lie rule. At the third lie, broadcast ends.
Right.
Fuck you, set of steak knives, you're out.
Yeah. So that would last all of 30 seconds. Okay. Because 30 seconds. That's it. Thank you very much. Good night. Because he can't help but lie.
Here's a lovely parting gift.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoy it, right?
Here's some makeup remover to take off that orange shit, because I'm sure your skin needs it. Jeez.
Well, listen, lying, I think, is the baseline attack vector now for a lot of the GOP, and I'm not quite sure, how we pull out that flat spin. I
have to imagine, as a former member of Congress watching those hearings today, when you find out that the whistleblowers are being paid by Kash Patel, one of Trump's cronies, and the Republicans act like this is like well, that's just perfectly normal. Everyone does that.
Well, Rick, they have to eat. They have to feed their families. Don't you know that, you cruel bastard? That's what Jim Jordan said today, by the way, when he was confronted by a journalist who said, is that appropriate that your whistleblower witnesses are being paid by Kash Patel? And they have to feed their families.
There's layered issues with that, right? First of all, you don't want to be paid by somebody who likes to model in full leather. Number one, right? I think number two, right? Being paid by anybody that was related to the Trump campaign is actually a discriminator. You can't have them up there. The third thing, and here's the thing that I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to employ the common sense million-pound shit hammer right now. So you're telling me that 3 former FBI agents have no other way to make a living to be paid by a leather-clad former Trump, minion? There should be something that flips in an American's head when they're watching this that goes, wait a minute. So these guys are professional law enforcement and they got to get paid by a hack underneath the Trump umbrella. Right. That right there, you should be like, this is bullshit. Drink.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's no other way around that if you have an IQ above 80.
By the way, everybody, you've heard Denver a couple of times refer to Kash as modeling in leather. He likes to appear wearing leather, like pants and shirt and boots, the whole thing. And as I like to say, bring out the cash. Cash is sleeping. Wake him up anyway.
Dude, that picture is on my phone.
Oh, stop.
I send that to my friends late at night.
Oh my
God. Just to remind them that the world is real and they're effed.
Oh my God. I suspect that he's sending pictures of himself in leather, God knows what, late at night to other people too, which is probably why he likes it. Since that's another thing. But Kash Patel, a lot of people, they don't know who he is. We know who he is because he was one of Trump's lackeys and who he put into the Department of Defense as a chief of staff to the
under Chris Miller,
right? For the Secretary of Defense, which is insane. And he was also tried to put him over at the CIA. And Gina Haspel threatened to resign if they did that. So they're like, oh well, that's not going to work. Let's put him over here, in the Department of Defense. So Denver, just talk a little bit about Kash Patel's role in January 6th and what the fuck happened over there, because he was there for a purpose, and it seems to me like he served that purpose well for Trump.
Yeah, when you're talking about that specific group, you're talking about the best way to put it, Tara. And I'm not trying to. I can never match your guys' wicked, machine gun fire verbosity and attack vectors. But I think when you're looking at this, it's like putting a kindergartner in charge of trying to teach a calculus class, right? A kindergartner who believes that the world is flat, and that's an issue that you have with what happened that day when you're looking at the chain of command and the issuance of orders, right, as it was flowing down to January 6th through the National Guard on active duty. And they absolutely breakdown, right, of any type of defensive posture they could have put into place because they had so many issues with chain of command, how it would work, how the planning would work, and I think that's the issue that, there's a lot of people said, well, maybe, they purposefully withheld the National Guard. We really didn't see that in January 6th, but here's what we did see. We saw massive incompetence. We saw communications failures and intelligence failures. So even though Cash is definitely a stop the steal minion, definitely a model, right? You have all that stuff that he's doing. The issue that you have is when you have the United States of America with that complex of an infrastructure and a chain of command and certain things that have to be executed for protection of the Capitol building, you have to have people in there that actually have the experience, the know-how, and the sanity to actually execute that plan. So my biggest fear is that these individuals are going to be brought back into a Trump administration if he wins in 2024. So, and I guess it's I'm almost out of words when I'm trying to explain to people, like, do you want a Kash Patel or a Rick Grinnell right back in the building, or Steve Bannon or Rudy Giuliani?
Yeah.
Right. Or how about this? How about Trump calling into Mike Flynn at a Reawaken Tour event and saying that he's going to be back into the administration? Mike Flynn is an issue. I think that's the understatement of the year, right? You guys probably know where I'm at with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. Understatement of the year, right? So the thing is that the people that are being attracted back into the vortex of the conspiracy Trump sticky bomb are the ones that he's going to bring into 2024 during the election cycle in 2025 if he were to win. And that's what should terrify the American public, is those are the people making American policy and actually executing operations. And that scares the hell out of me.
As it should.
As it should. Kash Patel's also the idiot that went around Fox News and everywhere else telling people that Trump can declassify things by just twinkling his nose and imagining it. He was like, I mean,
Denver, you and I have both been to the rodeo. We both been read into program. You many more than me, but we both been read into TSSCI matters, and the idea that somebody just goes, oh, now it's declassified. Whee! Even the president. No,
even the president.
How it works.
Right. It's insane.
It's a joke I've made, or not a joke, a statement I've made 100 times. If you or I had decided to take home one of those folders and just leave it in the house, laying around, we'd be in jail. We would go to jail. We would be in prison for a long time.
There's people in prison now for doing less.
The sheer amount of badness that would visit us, Rick, would be epic, right?
Helicopters, dogs, SWAT teams. Gitmo, the whole thing.
They would rip apart our digital life, right, Rick? It would be absolutely incredible. They'd be, they'd have forensic people. They'd be sucking all the stuff off of our laptops. They'd be cell phone. Every phone we've ever had.
Every inch of your home. I mean, there's
wife's phone taken.
I told this story one time. One time I was in a meeting of a compartment of a program, which I was cleared for. And somebody walks in and says, well, by the way, this, and this, and this. And all of a sudden, that guy was in the shit. I had to go through like weeks of getting cleared into the program almost retroactively.
Oh, wow.
Because it was a whole screw up. And that was just like a well-intentioned exposure or something that I had all the clearances to hear about if I was read in properly. I was not read in properly that day. And so that guy got in the shit. And I had to go deal with all that. We had to jump through all these hoops, but that's how serious this stuff is, people. That when you've got something that is classified top secret, sensitive, compartmentalized information, that stuff is the real deal. That stuff is the inalterable, profound damage to national security. And this guy had it laying around in a mildewy fucking closet in a country club.
But he's allowed to. He's allowed to, Rick. Come on.
Well, I would be surprised if there's accountability, and, I know we're hearing rumblings of that, but again, it's funny, guys. Again, we're in what is this middle of May, 2023?
Right.
Yeah.
I think we're in the future fight now. I've told people, the information war is the new forever war, right? I've said that many times.
Yep.
And I think we're in the future fight. I think a lot of people still, and listen, I still think there's another 1,000 pages to be written about command and control and what happened on January 6th. There's data that is still sequestered that our team did that is not out there, right? It's just too much. It's just too much. And we need about 6 months to a year to actually parse that data, to have another sort of full report on how it went down on the command and control side from the lieutenants on down, right? And I want to, I want to do it so badly, but my own data, our own work had to be turned in, right? All of our government laptops, phones, they're all gone, right? And that's part of our responsibility.
I think, though, people putting so much hope in Jack Smith, he's got all the right and reason to do it in the world and a great case, but
the longer it goes on, right?
I've seen this guy slide out from so much accountability for so long that I think people who are I think there'll be a lot of people who are heartbroken when Jack Smith can't bring the case.
I hope not, Rick. Don't mess up my day. I'm having a good day today. It was like 75, nice here in DC.
I can't live in a bubble where I think, oh, it'll all work out, because over and over again, hasn't worked out.
That's true.
Well,
but can I ask Denver? Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What did work out, though, and this had to be satisfying, was when the Oath Keepers guys and the Proud Boys guys got convicted of seditious conspiracy.
Yes.
When you saw that, did that track with the data that you guys came across as you were analyzing in preparation for the January 6th committee hearings? What was that? Was there more than those people? Is there more?
Line. Oh, there's so many more, and the thing that I would love to do for the American people, if I could do this now, when you look at some of those people like Biggs and Nordine, and you look at Tario, and you look at Rhodes, you look at these other big, all these, we had tracked them well before. I mean, you're talking about, we actually found them in the data, right? When we were getting the call detail records well before, and we were doing frequency analysis. And I remember, we're feeding that back to the committee, and they're like, oh, wow. I mean, we were just like, boom, 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 as we were getting these call detail records. So we're really good at frequency analysis, call chaining, and centers of gravity. I mean, that's our thing, right? And we didn't have all the data because we didn't have law enforcement authorities. And that's why, Rick and Tara, when I'm talking to you guys, there was definitely a 20% gap I could never get to, because I wasn't doing true counterterrorism and law enforcement operations. We were doing public trust, right type of analysis. However, when you have over 30 million lines of data, when one call record from one of the principals for the Proud Boys was 25,000 hard pages for 3 months. Think about what I just told you guys, right? One call record, right? We had to process multiple call records into one, what I called the monster, right? So when I saw them convicted, sorry guys, I get happy, and I'm also sad at the same time. It's life.
We live it every day with you, brother. Go ahead.
Right. But when I saw the convictions, it tracked with every single individual we identified in the priority list that we had in our own data. And let me tell you, I called my lead forensics guy. I'm like, Glenn, you freaking did it, dude. And, just incredible, right, that we had this sort of mesh, right, with the teams, his team, our team, our open source intelligence team. I tell you, I'll put this team, and they're all, you guys know, they're from law enforcement, NSA, DOD, right? This team is a super team, right? And they have done things with me for 20 years that we have such a trust. It's almost like we have this phalanx, this wartime sort of spirit that we're going to go after you. So when I saw it, Tara, I called all of our folks. I'm like, we did, listen, law enforcement had to execute that and do their own analysis.
But you guys played a major role.
Yeah, we did. I know we did. And I'll tell you, even without all of those authorities, we had them nailed 10 ways to Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I look forward to seeing them continue up the food chain. I hope DOJ continues moving up the chain to people. I want the folks in that Willard war room at some point to have some accountability, because I still, my gut tells me, and the reporting tells me, there's got to be a chain between the Willard war room and the White House at some level. And Mark Meadows' assistant zipping back and forth, and Andrea Priate and all those people.
Look at Denver's face.
I smell more than a rat in that room.
Denver,
Dude, listen, how do I say this? When you look at the four horsemen, I call them, right? When you look at Alex Jones, Roger Stone, Steve Bannon, and Mike Flynn, right? You're like, okay, we need to go deeper on that. When you look at the chariot with the four horsemen, that's Sidney Powell, right? Then you have their funders, right? You got the Patrick Burns, right? Mike Lindell, right? You got crazies, right? That are going on. So you have sort of this triangle. But what people forget when you said Priate, my God, you brilliant person, right? Is that there are assistants underneath that did not practice the OPSEC that other individuals did, the operational security, right? We broke that out completely. And that's the thing, is that I think there's a way, whether it's illegal or not, I don't care. And let me tell you in this way, I just want the American public to know how slick this is, how slick this operation is, how great their actual command and control is, but how great they are at actually spreading information to certain areas in a decentralized way. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. They don't need to get a phone call. Right. They don't need to execute the mission. All they're doing is watching the socials, or they're watching what people are putting out. They already know. They've already talked. They've already been sitting on Miles Guo's yacht, having drinks and having a great time, right? Or they've already been in the Ukraine searching for data on other people, right? They already know what each other's doing, sort of. They know the direction to go. And I want the American people to know this was not an accident. And if I could actually break that out, people might go to sleep and go, Jesus, God, that's a lot of data. But the thing is, if people would just have the freaking attention span to say, oh, crap, these guys have the attention span to do it. Maybe I need to invest in learning how this happens in a real way from experts that's facts and database, instead of getting all my opinions from memes that are created by Epoch Times or Town Hall. And I think that's where we need to be.
Exactly. Yes. And one example of some of that, some of those associations that you made as you were breaking through all of that data, you were responsible for finding the Ginny Thomas link to all of this, correct?
Woo!
I think we actually have to give credit to our MVP, Mark Meadows, for sending us the text messages. Let's do that first, right? I think we need to do that first, right, guys? But as far as actually linking the names to the numbers, that was our forensic team doing identity resolution and looking at registration. So now, obviously, we had a feeling that was her number based on content. But we had to actually prove that was her number, even though, we knew that there were texts being forwarded from people she knew from account that sounded like her when she said, hey, this is Jenny. We sort of had an idea. Yeah. People do sign their texts like Rick Perry, but we could talk about that. But so I was able to actually, find those. We were able to link those. And I was probably the first one to read them in context. Besides Jenny and Mark, I was probably the first one to read them that knew who they were.
How was that received? How was that received when you said, excuse me? Yeah, we have the wife of a Supreme Court justice talking about Gitmo barges and QAnon conspiracy theories of January 6th. And how was that received?
I think, guys, it was a combination of initial excitement and then fear. That was a complicated time. And I don't think at that point in the investigation, we were seeing all the data. And I think, and I'm not trying to do this to be self-deprecating or to just take blame when I don't need to, but I don't think with all the data we had, we were communicating how critical that was with all the other things we were seeing. So as I'm going, for the love of God, we need to, I did ask to subpoena Jenny Thomas back in February of 2022. Think about that, right?
Wow.
So, but there was a lot of fear, I think, because they weren't quite sure how it all connected at that time. And they said, are we taking this a step too far in a public trust investigation? It was not a great time. I was not very happy because for me, you follow the data regardless, but there were so many competing factors for resources.
Yeah.
And I tell people too, that when you have something that big and that fast, it's very difficult to get your arms around it in a way that's sort of cogent right off the bat. But I had them, Tara and Rick. I had them. I had them. I don't know what else to say. I had them. And when you see that she's in cahoots with the chief of staff of a congressional member, she has direct contact to Jared Kushner, and she's married to a Supreme Court justice, you do have even directly and tangentially, right? Tangentially. I love it when I do that. That was pretty funny, by the way. Too much Guinness. That was pretty funny. Come on. But anyway, so I think when you have all three branches that are starting to sort of merge, right? Because on January 6th and maybe planning going on those branches with coordination. Again, that's important for the American people to know that maybe the top end of the Republican Party shouldn't have believed, right, in QAnon. Right. Maybe. They shouldn't have believed, right, that the Bidens were going to be arrested and put on a barge. That's insane.
Real quick, because before we let you go, because we've already kept you way longer, but you're so interesting and fun to talk to, Denver.
I'm just drinking Guinness and talking.
And that's the way we like it on the breakdown. We used to do that on Fridays during the election, because when it was 5 days a week, by the time you got to Friday in 2020, you needed to freaking drink to keep yourself sane. real quick, two kind of a round robin, like real fast. The Rick Perry text. I saw you on Twitter arguing about this Rick Perry text thing with January 6th. What is it, and what's the real truth?
The real truth is Rick Perry sent some really bizarre, crazy text messages. And by the way, I just want everybody to know, if you don't want people to know your text messages, don't use a number that's registered to the government of Texas and you sign it. Probably indicators.
Yeah, probably not a good idea.
Right.
Call me crazy. Could be.
Yeah. What was the text about? What was it about? And why did it come up now?
Well, because he said he was going to run for president, right? So that he possibly could run for president. So the whole text message thing came back out. So he's like, well, obviously I didn't send that. That's not even my syntax. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, here's the issue. Yeah. The misspelled words were in line,
yeah.
right? So I think that's, and the thing is, it was early. So you're talking about early November when that was sent. And he was already talking about a strategy to overturn the election, right? And the other ones were, hey, give me a ring, signed Rick. So anyway, so that's the thing that I want to tell people is that data is a 1 million pound shit hammer. I'm full circle. Data is a 1 million pound shit hammer, right? And listen, you want to come out here, and you want to play in our field and you want to lie, but you forgot what you sent and what you used as a device.
Right.
You need to get your ducks in order, or your ducks in order. What is going on?
Ducks in a row.
Or
you need to get your ducks in a row. You do know.
You get your ducks out of your ass.
Yeah,
exactly. Out of your ass, right? Before you actually come up here. So there you go. That's thank you, Rick. I appreciate you helping me with that phrasing. But
that classical education was good for something.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no kidding.
And how utterly ridiculous is it for a congressman to go on a Sunday show like Congressman Comer did over the weekend to claim that they had this whistleblower who was going to uncover the whole Hunter Biden, Joe Biden corruption, Biden crime family. We've got this whistleblower, and then say, well, we can't find him. He's disappeared, and that's because he's an intelligence guy, and they're used to disappearing. How absurd!
He's an Israeli national who's a wanted arms dealer. The trustworthy kind.
Those are the best witnesses. And I think those are the best because what do they have to lose, Rick and Tara? I mean, but wow, they're good.
Upstanding member of the community.
Unbelievable. By the way, I think when you're going to find out a lot of the stuff with the Weaponization Committee and Oversight Committee, you're going to see a lot of the same actors from J6 are bringing up a lot of the same things you're seeing now. It's actually the same teammates that are, if you're talking about the laptop, talking about weird things like that, we're talking about anything else, right? The whistleblowers, it's the same sort of background dumbasses that are actually sort of coordinating and feeding this stuff. So again, the American people needs to consider the source, right? And that the sources are the Giulianis, the Bannons, the Flynn's and stuff like that for these committees. It's just the same folks that did J6. So there you go.
Thank you very much, Denver.
Thank you so much, my friend. I'm so glad you came on. What a fun night.
It's a party every night on Thursday.
Yeah.
Well, it's always a party with us. It's always a party with us. And we want to say thank you. And listen, if folks want to read more about Denver's time on the January 6th committee and some of the things that they found that weren't in the report, get his book, please. It's called The Breach.
Thank you, Tara.
It's called The Breach. There it is. Good. It's really, really good. And you get not only really interesting information, but you get a lot of Denver's wit, humor, and references in the whole book. And it's a really quick read. So check that out. And if you're ever in the Nelson County area of Virginia, you have got to go to Denver's distillery. It's called Silverback Distillery. Him and his wife make incredible whiskey. We are big fans in our house, particularly of the honey whiskey. But down there in Afton, Virginia, the best. Go down and see him and his wife and check out Silverback Distillery and their whiskey.
Thank you. I did not expect that. Thank you.
You're welcome. And you guys just won some awards recently for it too, right?
We just swept the awards at New Orleans Bourbon Festival. I got the best mother-daughter master distilling team in the world, maybe the only in the country. And let me tell you, it's a women-run company, soup to nuts, and that means it's so much better run than anything I could do. That's why I'm just the arm candy. I'm the arm candy.
Way better than that congressman stuff,
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, Denver. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, brother. We'll see you again.
He's the best, man.
I love
Listen,
that guy. I fucking love that guy.
I love him. And my husband and I have had the opportunity to go down there and spend time. And it's one of our favorite areas of Virginia. It's so beautiful there. It's right near the Blue Ridge Mountains. And there's amazing wineries there as well. It's not far from Charlottesville. So we try to get down there as often as possible.
I'm going to have to make a trip out there this summer if I can find 30 seconds.
I know. You guys should come down and we'll do a weekend. And it's fabulous near the Wintergreen Resort down there.
Let me get through the next 3 weeks of international travel. And we will
Yes. And I will, speaking of that, I will see you next week, but not internationally. One last thing before we go, because we didn't get to it, and I know we're running a little long tonight, but Denver, I just thought was a good person to have on tonight. And yeah, nice. Very nice. It never gets old. It never gets old.
It never gets old. And I'm a dick. I can't stop it.
I did it on this red carpet, remember?
Yes.
On Monday. I forgot what somebody said, but I did it. That's what she said. I have a poster that my husband bought me for Christmas in my office with that's what she said. Like the Obama poster, but it's but it's Michael Scott. Anyway, we've got to just touch really quick on the Trump DeSantis stuff because DeSantis is going to announce next week, and it's got to be the most like, dude, you so missed the moment at this point.
This is the guy today, and I've been saying this for weeks. Going to war with Disney and Bob Iger is like a land war in Asia in the winter. You just don't do it.
Right.
And yet, what did he do? He went to war with Disney. He's kept up this stupid war with Disney. And today, Disney and our friend Sarah Rumpf has got some amazing reporting on the whole backstory of this at Mediaite. Disney's pulling out of multi-billion dollars of investments in the state of Florida right now because Ron DeSantis is a moron.
Yeah.
He's going to kill 20,000 jobs. He's going to kill billions of investment. He's going to kill 75 million plus in tax revenue just from what this one complex would have produced every year.
Yeah.
And all of it is because he needs to own the libs. And he is falling in the polls day by day. Every day gets worse. He does not have good days. He went to Iowa and had like a 5-minute fantasy session where a few New York Times reporters tried to make it into a horse race. It's not a horse race. He's not a good candidate.
I mean, listen, he did a donor call today. The New York Times reported on it. I suggest you check out the story. And it was just him talking to donors, basically letting them know that he's going to announce next week. Mm-hmm. And it was just him talking. He didn't take any questions. It was him rambling on. I can only imagine how entertaining that was. I mean, the guy is the worst. And he had no mention though of the Disney thing. He wasn't talking about that because a lot of these donors are free market capitalists like Republicans used to be. And they're like, cut the shit. What are you doing? This is insane. And they're very annoyed with him about this, which is why it looks like some folks are floating their names out there. Like my home state governor now, where I live in Virginia, stupid Glenn Youngkin, thinking about he might run. He put out this stupid video today with not even an American fighter jet.
That if one of our editors had put a foreign fighter plane in one of our videos, somebody in our organization would have said, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah, shout out to Philip for pointing that out.
Well, I'm hearing around the rumor mill that this is a sign that Jeff Rowe, the notorious consultant who last year lost 9 out of 10 races and spent $100 million of donor money, losing 9 out of 10 races, who is now running the Ron DeSantis super PAC. I'm hearing rumors that he's got an exit plan to go back to Glenn Youngkin and to get back in bed with Glenn Youngkin and snuggle up against the sweater vest and try to run Glenn Youngkin's presidential campaign as well.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Lie down with dogs, get up with fleas.
Indeed. Good luck with that, buddy.
Yeah, enjoy.
So when we see you guys in 2 weeks, we will have plenty to say about DeSantis's announcement because I'm sure it'll be interesting.
I will not be with you in 2 weeks. I have to admit it.
That's right.
I'm going to be in Florence.
Yes, Firenze, my favorite city in Italy. Way better than Rome. I love Florence. It's amazing, and I'm jealous that you're going. I'll be in Italy in September for our 10-year anniversary.
To attend to.
Yes, I'm familiar. I know. I know. Do we have the DeSantis laugh?
Oh, I think we do.
Oh my God, people.
If you guys are too young to remember the Howard Dean laugh,
Dean scream.
Look it up.
The Dean scream, everyone. We leave you with the Dean scream. Oh my gosh. Thanks, guys, for watching. And check out Rick's podcast, The Enemies List, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Yeah!